This happened last summer. I was 32 and had just moved to the quiet suburbs, thinking it would be a good place for my freelance graphic design work. I settled into a small townhouse at the end of Palmetto Road. At first, everything seemed normal. The houses were brick, the lawns were nice, and it was quiet. Too quiet sometimes. I kept feeling like something was off. It was a Thursday night, around 11 p.m., when I noticed flickering lights from the house next door. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was setting up some fancy outdoor lights. I was curious, but a bit cautious. I told myself it was nothing, just new decor. I turned back to my screen, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next nights were the same. Each evening, the odd lights flickered back to life. They glowed in ways that felt strange. Sometimes I heard distant thuds or laughter echoing into the stillness. It made my skin crawl. I tried to focus on my work, but I kept glancing out the window. One night, I swear I saw shadows moving past the window, but I was pretty sure nobody lived next door. I felt uneasy, but couldn't pinpoint why. The lights kept their uncanny dance, and my fear only grew. I convinced myself that something weird was happening next door. Strange rituals, maybe? It sounds silly, but I could hear muffled whispers sometimes, like a heated conversation. I tried to tell myself it was just my imagination, but sometimes I saw shapes shifting in the glow. I started staying up late, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever was happening. One night, I sat in my dark living room holding my breath. The lights were bright, flickering different colors. I wanted to check it out, but fear kept me glued to the couch. My heart raced. A chill crept down my spine. Then I heard a loud crash, something hitting a wall hard. I felt my pulse quicken. I stood up and moved closer to the window, unsure what I was expecting to see. A party? Something dangerous? I waited, almost afraid to breathe. That's when I noticed it. Something dark was standing by the window of the neighbor's house, and it looked right back at me. I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded louder. I thought I could see its eyes glowing, reflecting the lights. Maybe I was wrong. I suddenly felt so cold, like the warm air had vanished. Then it disappeared, just like that. I told myself it was my imagination, but what if it wasn't? I didn't know what to do. I felt so lost. The lights continued their bizarre flickering every night. I started dreading the dark, unsure if I'd see that shape again. Finally, I felt I had to leave. I packed up and moved away from Palmetto Road. It felt like I had escaped. Even now, I still wonder about those lights. I still wonder who or what was there. What really happened last summer? I don't know, and maybe it's better that way. The moment I drove away from Palmetto Road, a flood of relief washed over me. I thought the nagging feeling of dread would fade as I settled into my new place on Maple Street, but it didn't. I found myself staring out the window more often than not, watching the shadows grow long in the evening light. I tried to keep busy with work. Freelancing on my computer helped distract me, but every completion beep felt like a reminder. I was always hearing things, windows creaking, the faint sound of laughter in the distance. I kept telling myself there was nothing to fear. It was just the sounds of a new neighborhood. Then came the letters. The first one arrived about 2 weeks after I moved in. It was tracked in my mailbox and sealed in a plain white envelope. I opened it, expecting junk mail, but instead found a single note inside. Things are not always what they seem. Beware the light. At first, I thought it was a prank. I shrugged it off as meaningless until the next letter came. Then another. Each one carried the same chilling message, each signed simply as a friend. That night, a storm rolled in, rumbling and crashing like an angry beast. I had just begun to relax when the power flickered and everything went dark. I found myself grinding my teeth, hearing the echoes of the past creep back in. What was the connection? My heart raced, and I decided to step outside. I needed fresh air, a break from the suffocating darkness. I stepped into the rain, letting it soak through my clothes and wash away the worry. As I walked, I felt drawn toward the back of my house where the trees thinned out. I paused when I heard a faint glow. A faint light flickered through the branches. It was a soft yellow, pulsing gently against the night's shadows. My hands trembled as I took a small step toward it. I thought of the letters and the warnings, but curiosity overtook my fear. I approached the source of the light, peering around the trees. That's when I saw it, a small, weathered lantern hanging from a crooked branch. I checked behind the tree, expecting to find someone hiding. There was no one, just the lantern, swinging ever so slightly, illuminating an area at the base of the tree. Then I noticed something else, a series of symbols carved into the trunk. It made my heart race. They looked familiar, almost like the sketches I had seen last summer. I reached out to trace the lines, hoping to decipher their meaning. The moment my fingers brushed against the wood, a cold wind swept through the area, extinguishing the lantern's light. I stumbled back, gasping. Everything went silent. The fear gripped me tight. I was not alone anymore. Rushing back toward the house, I turned to look at the tree again. There, in the darkness, I swore I saw movement, shadows gathering near the trunk. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever I had uncovered was just the beginning. Now, what was I up against? I had to find out. The letters, the light, they were all interconnected. I braced myself for what was to come. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache. I barely slept after seeing those shadows. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, trying to piece together the events of the previous night. The lantern, the symbols, everything felt like a tangled mess in my mind. I had to calm down. Breathing deeply, I forced myself to face the day. After a quick breakfast, I put on my jacket and headed outside. I needed answers, and that meant talking to my neighbors. Maybe they had seen something strange. As I walked down Maple Street, I felt exposed, but it was better than being trapped alone with my thoughts. The neighbor across the street appeared to be in her garden. I hesitated, but finally walked over. "Hi there, I'm new here. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Oh, another one," she said. "Welcome to the neighborhood." Her tone caught me off guard. "Another one? People come and go around here. Just be careful. There are things lurking." I decided not to push for more details. "Do you have any idea what that means?" I asked, forcing a lightness to my voice. Instead of responding, she merely shook her head. "Good luck. You'll need it." I felt an eerie chill creep down my spine as I walked away. What was going on here? I needed more than vague warnings. As I continued down Maple, a flicker of movement caught my eye. I turned my head just in time to see the curtain of a side window drop. Someone inside was watching me, but they didn't want to be seen. Ignoring the unease pooling in my stomach, I pressed on. My next stop was the local library. If I was to uncover the truth, I needed historical context. Once I settled into a corner, I began searching for anything related to my neighborhood. And that's when I found an old newspaper clipping. Strange lights reported in the woods, unexplained phenomena reported by residents. It detailed events from 5 years ago, exactly when I was there during summer. My heart raced as I read the accounts. People spoke of strange noises, lights flickering across the trees, and whispers in the night. Some had even seen silhouettes nearby. The more I read, the more my mind linked the letters and the lantern I encountered. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as a realization set in. My past and present were colliding. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and a bolt of fear surged through me. Bad memories swirled in my mind. I quickly gathered my notes and decided it was time to get back home. As I left the library, the sky had darkened ominously. I hurried down the street, my anxiety swelling. I replayed the newspaper articles in my mind, piecing together data as if I were solving a puzzle. There was something deeper here than a random warning. When I reached my house, I noticed my front door was ajar. I didn't remember leaving it open. The panic returned. Someone had been inside. I stepped cautiously to the door, every instinct telling me to run away, but I couldn't. I had to find out what happened. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door wider and stepped inside. The air was thick with silence. Then I spotted something on the kitchen table, a new letter, waiting for me. I approached the table, my heart racing. The letter was handwritten, the letters uneven and jarring. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. The familiar dread settled in my stomach as I read the first few lines. Dear friend, if you're reading this, it means you found my note. I hope you understand the urgency of what I'm about to tell you. I barely managed to read further. Each word felt heavy and filled with a sense of foreboding. Whoever wrote this knew more than I did, and the stakes felt alarmingly high. I meant to reach you before you had the chance to uncover the truth on your own. There are things lurking in the woods, things that come alive when the stars align. You must leave this place before the shadows take notice. The letter fell from my shaking hands. My mind raced. Shadows? What did that even mean? I recalled the neighbor's words, the way she had warned me. I suddenly felt like I was being pulled into a story I didn't want to be a part of. Hastily, I scanned the room. Everything seemed untouched, but a sense of violation enveloped me. Someone had come here, had been here while I was gone. Was it connected to the letter? My breath started to quicken, and I felt that same electric charge of fear from earlier. This wasn't over. Cautiously, I stepped back toward the door, keeping my eyes on the windows. I needed to get out of this house. But then my gaze caught a glimpse of something behind the curtain. There, standing in the shadows of my backyard, was a figure. My heart dropped. Had they followed me home? Panic surged through me, propelling me back to the kitchen. I ducked down, moving quietly to the back door while praying they wouldn't see me. I needed to escape, to find help. But just as I twisted the doorknob, there came a sharp knock at the front door. My pulse quickened again. Who else was there? Anxiety clawed at me as I considered my options. The figure outside could be a threat, or maybe it was someone who had answers. The knocking intensified. What could I do? I was stuck between the looming figure in my backyard and whoever was demanding my attention at the front. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and went out completely, leaving me in complete silence. Fear bubbled within me, and I gripped the doorframe, debating my next move. Just then, I heard a whisper, soft, barely audible. You shouldn't be here. My breath caught in my throat. I need to decide fast. I was running out of time, and whatever was outside wanted to make sure I didn't uncover the truth. I steeled myself, ready to face whatever was hidden in the dark. I hesitated, my heart pounding. The darkness wrapped around me, and the whisper echoed in my mind. You shouldn't be here. It felt like a warning, a threat. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think. Whoever was outside could be my only chance at understanding what was happening. I clenched the doorframe tighter. The knocking on the front door continued, clamoring for attention. I had to choose. I turned the knob slowly, my ears straining to hear any movement outside. I needed to see if the figure in the backyard was still there. Just then, a shiver ran down my spine. I could sense something shifting in the dark corners of my home. I pushed the door open a crack and stepped outside. The night air was frigid, sending chills through me. I squinted, trying to make out the shape in the backyard. It didn't move. I felt exposed, but I didn't have time to dwell on fear. I glanced back at the front door, hesitating. What if it was someone I could trust? What if it was just a stranger? Then came a voice from the shadows. Please, you need to listen. It was soft, almost pleading. I took an instinctive step back, glancing between the dark and the door. "Who are you?" I called out, my voice shaky. The figure shifted slightly, and I could finally make out a face, pale and gaunt, with wild eyes. It was a man, but something was off. He was covered in dirt, as if he had just crawled out of the earth. "You have to leave this place," he repeated urgently, his tone trembling. "They know you are here." He stepped further into the dim light, revealing more of his disheveled appearance. "They've come for you." My head spun. "Who? What do you mean?" "The shadows, they're not just in the woods," he said, his eyes darting nervously. "They inhabit this house, and they'll take you if you don't go now." I felt a wave of panic rising in my chest. This couldn't be real. But the urgency in his voice sent electric shocks through my body. I had to know more. "The letter! I found a letter! What does it mean?" Before he could answer, the door to my house creaked, swinging wider, as if inviting whatever dark force was creeping inside. My instincts kicked in. I turned and bolted to the side of the house, away from the gaping door. "Wait!" the man called, but I didn't stop. I wasn't ready to face whatever that meant. Not yet. I dashed toward the garage, heart pounding. If I could just find a car, I could escape. But as I rounded the corner, I froze. The streetlights flickered on one by one, illuminating the figure of someone standing at the end of my driveway. It was a woman, my neighbor, the one who had warned me before. But there was something different about her now, a certainty in her stance, a darkness in her eyes that made my blood run cold. "Come here," she beckoned, her voice smooth yet tightly wound, like a coiled spring. As if sensing my hesitation, she took a step closer, her expression shifting to something more sinister. I felt the weight of dread wrap around my throat. I had to decide, and fast. I turned back to the man, but he was gone. The shadows were closing in. The night was alive with whispers, pulling me toward the unknown and away from the safety I desperately sought. I took one last look at the glowing streetlight, bracing myself for what was to come. As soon as I saw the neighbor approach, I turned and ran toward the garage. I couldn't think about the woman, her presence suffocating. My brain was racing, desperate for a way out. Fear tightened around me, but it motivated my feet to move faster. The garage door was a few steps away, and with every heartbeat, I echoed the fading words of the man from the backyard and the warning embedded in my mind. I reached the door, fumbling with the handle. It was locked. Panic surged inside me. I quickly scanned the area. The lights that had flickered on were now illuminating the driveway, revealing the dark shape of my neighbor as she stepped closer. The shadows seemed to bend around her, deepening the darkness around us. I pounded my palm against the door, pleading silently for it to open. "Help, please!" I yelled into the silence, knowing that no one was around to hear me. My breath came in quick gasps, the cold air burning my throat. There had to be another way out. Without thinking, I dashed toward the side of the garage where an old window sat slightly ajar. I reached for it, but it wouldn't budge. The sounds of footsteps grew louder behind me, sharp and calculated. I didn't want to look back, but I couldn't resist. My neighbor was now mere feet away, her lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Why are you running?" Her voice danced with an unsettling amusement. "You can't escape what you are." I turned my attention back to the window, pulling at the frame with every ounce of power left in my trembling arms. Finally, the frame gave in with a grunt of metal. I scrambled to widen the opening, enough for me to slip through. But before I could make my escape, her voice stopped me again. "Don't you want to know the truth?" "What truth?" I shouted back, my fear mingling with curiosity against my better judgment. "What do you know?" "In time," she replied, her tone dripping with malice. "In time, you'll see it all." I didn't have time for mind games. I launched myself through the window, getting stuck for a moment before pulling the rest of my body through. I hit the grass hard, the cold earth grounding me for a moment. The panic surged again as I scrambled to my feet, glancing back at the garage. My neighbor was still watching, her smile unwavering. I had to run. There was no point in hesitating any longer. I dashed toward the street, the night air whipping around me. In the distance, I could see a few faint lights from other houses. The thought of safety urged me onward. But before I could reach the road, a chilling laugh echoed around me. I stopped, my pulse racing. Reality shifted as I caught a glimpse of a shadow flickering at the edge of my vision. I turned, heart pounding. That's when I saw it, my own reflection in a darkened window of the garage flickering back at me. I hadn't expected to see anyone standing there, and yet it stared, a distorted version of myself bathed in shadow. My breath caught. I was not alone. The reflection blinked, and I screamed. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. I had to get out of there, away from whatever was happening. I turned my back on the garage and ran, but the echo of my neighbor's laugh followed me like a haunting melody. As I raced toward the nearest house, the shadows morphed around me, twisting and contorting. I felt eyes on me, a sense of being watched that gnawed at my sanity. My heart raced, and I fought against the urge to look back. Maybe she was right behind me, or maybe it was just my mind playing tricks in the night. I reached the neighboring house and skidded to a stop. I pounded on the door, shouting for help. The light flickered on inside, illuminating the silhouette of someone moving. Then it went dark again. I pressed my ear to the door and listened, holding my breath. Nothing. No footsteps, no voices, just silence, amplifying my dread. I turned back toward the street, the openness beyond my sanctuary feeling menacing. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up as I caught another flicker out of the corner of my eye. There it was again, the same shadowy figure, just standing there, observing me from the edge of the lawn. My breath quickened, realizing I had only moved from one trap to another. Desperate, I ran. I didn't care where I was headed, just that it was away from that garage and my neighbor. As I sprinted down the street, I thought of the woods behind my house. They were dense, with twisted trees that could provide some cover, at least until I figured out what was really happening. Just as I reached the edge of the woods, I heard a rustling sound to my left. Adrenaline coursed through me. I turned, scanning the tree line. My neighbor wasn't just lurking close. Her laughter danced through the branches, the sound growing louder, more taunting than ever before. I bolted into the woods, branches scratching at my arms and face. I tripped over roots and stumbled into the darkness, the shadows swallowing me whole. With every step, I felt her presence lurking, an unshakable weight that pulled me back toward the chaos I was trying to escape. As I ran deeper into the underbrush, I spotted a faint glow ahead. My heart leaped. It could be another house, a light to guide me, a way out. I pushed myself harder, diving through the foliage. But as I drew closer, my stomach sank. The glow didn't come from a house. It came from a circle of luminescent mushrooms, pulsing with a sickly light. That's when I noticed something else. Figures moving around the mushrooms, shadows darting between the trees. I stumbled backward, my breathing erratic. I wasn't alone in the woods, and those figures didn't look human. Fear surged anew, boiling in my veins as I turned to flee, and that's when a hand clamped down on my shoulder. "Stay with us," a voice whispered close to my ear. I jerked away, spinning to face the owner of that cold, breathy voice. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could make out a figure standing just behind me, their expression hidden in shadow. Panic surged as I stumbled backward, but before I could run, more hands encircled me, their grip firm yet unnaturally cold. "Don't be afraid," another voice chimed, this one from my left. "We want to help." Help? This didn't feel like help. It felt like a trap. My instincts screamed at me to fight, to scream and run. But I was frozen, rooted to the spot under their insistent grips. The glow of the mushrooms pulsed around me, casting haunting shadows that danced on the ground. I could see those figures clearly now, their loosely draped clothing, their hollow eyes gleaming like the mushrooms beside them. "Please, you don't understand," one of them pleaded. She stepped closer, her face revealing a gaunt familiarity. "We need you." My heart raced. Did I know her? "Why?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely above a whisper. Shock and confusion limited my thoughts, and all I could feel was that suffocating dread creeping back. "It's not safe here. Things are not what they seem," she said, her voice low and urgent. "We can show you the truth." The truth? What did that even mean? I wanted to recoil, to escape this nightmare, but the way they clustered around me drew me in, like moths to a flame. I struggled against their grip, but their cold fingers tightened. The laughter from the woods faded, replaced by an unsettling quiet that wrapped around us. "Your neighbor, she's taken something from us," the tall figure said, his tone darkening. "Something we need to bring back. You are the key. Without you, we can't stop her." Caught between disbelief and fear, I felt the reality of my situation weighing down on me. My neighbor, the reflection, those figures, was I really part of all this? If I didn't find out more, I might never feel safe again. "Let me go!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the trees. "I won't help you." For a second, everything was still. Then they exchanged glances, an unspoken agreement passing between them. A chill shot through me as they began to close in tighter. I thrashed against them, and before I could think, I turned and ran deeper into the woods, breaking free. Branches whipped against my face as I launched myself forward, the pulsating glow behind me fading quickly. I had to put distance between myself and those strange figures, but where could I even go? The uncertainty of the woods was terrifying, but staying near the mushrooms was worse. I burst through a thicket and stumbled into a small clearing. That's when I saw it, something glittering on the ground, half buried in leaves. A silver object. Hesitating, I crouched down, my heart pounding as I pulled it free. It was a locket, old and tarnished, with a haunting inscription that read, "Find the light." Before I could process what that meant, I heard their whispers again, rising from the darkness. I had to make a choice, confront them with this clue or continue running blindly. But now the murmurs began to take on a more familiar tone, and that's when I realized the last giggling laugh wasn't just in my head. Someone was still watching me from the shadows. My instincts kicked in. I had to get out. The locket felt heavy in my palm, a cold weight anchoring me to the ground. I shoved it into my pocket and glanced around, searching for any sign of an escape. The whispers seemed closer now, echoing through the trees like a sinister melody. Just as I turned to run, something caught my eye, a movement among the shadows. I froze, straining to see. A figure stepped out, her face partly concealed by darkness, but I knew that voice. It was the gaunt woman from before. "Wait," she called, her breath visible in the chilly air. "Please, you don't understand." "What do you want from me?" I shouted, feeling the rising tide of fear clawing at my throat. "We need you to help us find the truth about her," she said, pointing back toward the direction I had fled. "She doesn't belong to this world. We're here to help set things right. The locket you found, it's a key." The urgency in her voice pierced through my panic, but mistrust simmered just below the surface. "What do you mean I'm the key?" She stepped closer, her haunted eyes unwavering. "Your neighbor, she has taken more than you realize. Every summer, her games take a toll on our realm, our balance. We can't reach her without you." I took a step back, the ground beneath my feet suddenly feeling unsteady. I don't believe you. You're just using me. No, we are trapped because of her, she insisted. You have seen her pain in the reflection. You know there's something wrong. Come with us. Before I could validly consider it, a low growl ripped through the atmosphere, freezing the exchange. I felt a deep chill settle over me, one that had nothing to do with the cold air. Something else was coming. My breath quickened as I looked around frantically. The figure had vanished back into the shadows, and the whispers turned into frenzied laughter that surrounded me. Not again, I muttered, my heart thumping fiercely against my ribcage. I turned to run, but the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. Too loud, too close. I sprinted ahead, adrenaline racing through my veins, the woods transforming into a labyrinth of looming shadows and muffled noises. I ran blindly, branches scraping my arms, fear driving each step. I couldn't let them catch me. I burst into another clearing, panting heavily. A silhouette blocked the moonlight. I squinted, searching for recognition. It was my neighbor, standing tall and menacing. "Did you find what you were looking for?" she asked, her voice dripping with a sly amusement. Her eyes glinted in the dark, holding a power I couldn't comprehend. I felt the weight of the locket in my pocket pulsate against my skin, as if responding to her presence. "Stay back!" I shouted, backing into the trees. "What do you want?" Her lips curled into a cruel smile. "Oh, you'll see. But not yet." Then everything went dark as the laughter swelled again, engulfing me in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I woke with a start, my heart racing as I tried to piece together what had just happened. The darkness pressed in around me, heavy and suffocating. I was lying on the cold ground of the clearing among fallen leaves, and for a few disoriented seconds, I thought maybe it had been a dream, a vivid, terrifying dream. But the locket was still in my pocket, its weight anchoring me to reality. I scrambled to my feet, scanning the dim surroundings for any sign of life. The woods were still, too still, and a chill ran down my spine as I remembered my neighbor's taunting grin, the laughter echoing all around. The air was thick with foreboding as I edged forward, listening intently. I had to get out of here. I turned and ran through the shadows, branches clawing at my arms, the whispers filling my ears. They weren't just echoes from the darkness. They were warnings, cries for help. Suddenly, the ground below me shifted. I lost my footing and tumbled down a small slope, landing in an overgrown ditch. My heart raced as I lay there, breathless and disoriented. I glanced up, and that's when I saw it, the faint light flickering again, just like before. Compelled by a strange mixture of fear and curiosity, I clambered through the weeds toward the glow. It was a small lantern, like the one I had found before, but this one looked different, more intricate, adorned with delicate carvings, radiating a warmth that felt inviting compared to the surrounding chill. It was almost as if it had been waiting for me. I reached for the lantern, hesitating as a sense of recognition washed over me. The symbols carved into the wood seemed familiar. I glanced back toward the dark path I had come from, feeling the weight of indecision. Should I take this lantern? A rustling behind me cut through my thoughts, and I spun around, stepping back instinctively. Stepping out from the shadows was the figure of the gaunt woman once again. "You found it," she said, relief washing over her features. "Now you have to use it to confront her. It's the only way." "Confront who?" I gasped, trying to catch my breath. "My neighbor? How do you know?" "Because she's not who she seems. The lantern can reveal her true nature. But remember, you must be ready for whatever you uncover." I felt an inescapable pull toward the warmth of the lantern, the shadows falling away from its light. I reached out to grasp it. The moment my fingers brushed its surface, sending a tremor through me. It felt alive, pulsating with potential. Before I could gather my thoughts, I remembered the laughter from earlier, the things lurking in the dark. I had to make a choice soon. "What do I do?" I whispered urgently. "Take it back to her," the woman urged, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Once the truth is revealed, you'll have a chance to free us all from her grasp, but time is short." I nodded, the enormity of what lay ahead settling heavily in my chest. With the lantern clutched tightly in my hands, I turned toward the path I had run from, feeling its warmth juxtaposed against the biting cold of the woods. I found my courage, channeling everything I had felt, the fear, the uncertainty, the whispers, and pushed forward, back through the darkness, toward my house, the heart of whatever chaos had taken root there. As I drew closer, I felt the shadows thickening, swirling around me. The air changed, charged with an electric tension. The front door swung open effortlessly, and I stepped inside, lantern held high, the light flickering with newfound intensity. "Show yourself," I called out, my voice steadying me as I stepped into the weighty silence of the house. There was no answer, just the echoes of my own heartbeat. Moments stretched into agonizing eternity as I stood waiting. Then the temperature dropped and the lights flickered ominously as if on cue. I took a step deeper inside, determined to confront whatever entity lurked within my walls. And then, there she was, my neighbor, standing in the living room, a smile curling at the edges of her lips. The shadows twisted around her like serpents, coiling tighter the further I advanced. "I wondered when you'd come," she said coolly, a predatory glint in her eyes. "But you don't understand the danger you're in." "No," I shot back, raising the lantern higher. "It's you who doesn't understand. I'm not afraid of you anymore." Her laugh echoed, and at that moment I felt the lantern responding, vibrating with energy. "You can't!" But before she could finish, I hurled the lantern toward her, its light pouring out like a liquid sun, illuminating the darkness in the corners of the room. For an instant, everything froze. The shadows receded, revealing glimpses of twisted faces and grotesque forms around her. An array of souls trapped within her presence. They screamed silently, longing for freedom, as my neighbor's facade began to crack, the darkness writhing at the edges of her being. "No!" she roared, as the brightness enveloped her, kicking up a swirl of dust and remnants of the past. I covered my eyes, trying to shield myself from the intensity of the eruption, from her yanking shadow like an anchor pulling in chaos. When the light finally dimmed, I blinked away the dazzle, stepping cautiously forward. The air felt lighter, and the house was quiet, almost serene. She was gone. I stood alone, bathed in the fading glow, breathless and shaken. But as I turned to leave, the weight of all the unanswered questions settled on my shoulders. What had just happened? Had I truly freed whatever had been trapped, or had I opened a door that should have remained closed? I made my way back outside, glancing back at the now normal facade of the house. In the distance, the woods still stood dark and imposing, whispering secrets and possibly threats. I still didn't know if this was over, or if my actions had unwittingly invited something even darker into the world. Maybe I had escaped some danger, but what of the lingering shadows that would forever be tied to my memories? With questions swirling like a tempest in my mind, I turned away from the house for good, uncertain of what lay ahead, but undoubtedly aware that this summer, this bizarre, chilling summer, had changed everything. I moved to a different city afterward, and sometimes, late at night, I can't shake the feeling that my neighbor still watches me from a distance, hidden beneath layers of darkness. I try not to think about it, but I can't forget the weight of the unknown, trailing behind, forever entwined with that flickering light.